I was the mom who was completely burned out, tired, could not handle another second by like 8 a.m. My husband would leave for work and I would feel drained, exhausted, dread. And if this is you, I want to bring you hope that it's not always going to be this way. Your kids don't just need to get older. It doesn't have to be just a phase. You can actually heal yourself. You can actually come to a place where you handle things with calm and patience. And it doesn't have to be because your kids are older and more mature. This actually starts with a mature nervous system, which is something that we'll get into today. But this was my story. I struggled so much with mom rage and anger, and honestly, I hated myself. I hated who I was as a mom. And I'll never forget the night that I sat on the floor. I'd had just a terrible day. I mean, like I said, I was burned out by 8 a.m. I rolled out of bed, done, tired. And I just cried on the floor and I begged God. I was like, would you please just show me a new path? Because I can't keep doing this. And I even like asked, like, did I miss my calling? Did I think motherhood was it? And it's not. Because clearly I can't handle this. And what led next was I went back to school and I started to actually heal myself. And I knew that if I healed myself, like I said, the moment I signed up for school, I said, if this works, I need to share this with the entire world. I don't care how it gets into the hands of other moms, but this needs to be told. And so that is what I do here. That is what I do. I help moms to actually enjoy motherhood again, to be happy, to have ease and joy in their life because you can. It doesn't just have to be a phase. It doesn't just have to be because your kids are older. And I will tell you, as kids get older, they have other phases and other things that it just is different. It's not more difficult or less difficult. It's just different. And so it's knowing how to handle yourself. And so that starts with you. So you probably didn't come to this video necessarily thinking, okay, I need to change things about myself. But that's where it starts. So the very first thing that I did to heal myself, to begin actually having patience for my kids, was healing my nervous system. I talk so much about this on my channel. I'm going to link a couple of videos. I actually have a whole playlist. Maybe I'll link that instead. But you can find so much information about the nervous system. But I think the key piece of the nervous system for me was that I just needed to get the ball rolling. If you're unfamiliar with the nervous system, this is the part of our body that regulates our emotion. It is the part that goes into fight, flight to protect ourselves. It's a protective mechanism and you need it. You absolutely 100% need it, right? But we don't need to live in fight or flight all day long with our kids. Our kids are not a saber-toothed tiger. Our kids are not monsters. They're not actually out to get us. We just have a very immature nervous system. And I believe this is because we were never taught. I would say most generations, especially those who have immigrated, right? And for me, that was my story. I had a conversation with my grandfather, which I'll link that video here where I talk about this conversation about old-fashioned moms. But his mom was one of the first children to be here from Germany. And she really struggled with motherhood. And he was one of, I believe, 8 children. So he was the last, he was the baby. And so he saw her just struggle. And I asked him, I said, do you think that if she stayed in Germany, do you think that she would have had the help? She would have had the community, the support that she needed? He's like, absolutely. But to me, that's where it started, right? We left our origin, where we were from, our community, our help, our support system, and we moved into a new foreign place. We didn't have people, at that time we were very far apart. So where my grandfather lived, he lived, probably a few miles from another home. He was a farmer. And so we didn't have this robust community. Not all of us did. And so if we don't have that secure attachment with our caregiver. And so I'm looking at my great-great-grandmother and her attachment to her mother, who is no longer, here. She's left in Germany. she doesn't know how to mother a child in a way that is regulated. And the way he described her parenting was very suppressive. So it made sense to me that he would be struggling, that my dad then would be struggling. And then, of course, I would be struggling. Then, if we go down my mother's line, it's the same story. And so I began to dive into nervous system work for myself. I love Irene Lyon. She has just opened my eyes to the nervous system. And I also began doing somatic exercises. I know that that is one that it does take a little bit of time, right? The nervous system is not a quick fix, but it's something that you can begin working on today. And like I said, I have an entire playlist on this, so I go into like a lot more detail. But if you want to just start doing little things to actually start to activate a calmer state within your body, that parasympathetic state, which is that calm state, I'm going to pause this video because I realize that I didn't mention my calming tools. And I think that that's incredibly important part of healing the nervous system. I created these because I love somatic exercises. They're awesome. But what do you do in a moment when you are feeling angry and like you want to rage, or you're frustrated? You can feel the heat in your body. The temperature is literally rising. Your thermometer is getting higher. What do you do? And these are the tools that literally worked for me. That doesn't mean that they're going to fix your nervous system, but they are like a very first step. That just beginning part of being able to heal yourself. So if you're interested, you can just comment calm below and I will send them to you. They're completely free. There's 14 of them. I think I said that. But they are just such a great resource for you to actually begin and get started in this journey. Okay, the second thing that you are going to want to do to actually have patience with your kids is understand your triggers. Not what your kids are doing, not what your friends are doing, what your triggers are. And what's surprising is when I tell parents, your kid cannot be your trigger, because the kid is not actually the trigger. And a lot of parents are like, what? How is my kid not the trigger? It is something else that's triggering you. I want to give you an example. So I just came back from a 20-day trip. My husband was gone on a deployment. And so I was 20 days by myself with my parents. And while it was great to have support and to have help, when I came home, I was really overwhelmed. I was really burned out from being a full-time mom. And I had gotten a little tiff with my husband. And the next day I was just miserable. And to be truthful, I was kind of lashing out at my kids. I was blaming them and I was feeling very triggered by their behaviors. I wasn't as able to stay as regulated as normal. And normally what I would do when I was in that burnout stage is I would just get frustrated with them and the ball would just keep rolling and we would just have a terrible day. And sometimes this would even lead to like terrible weeks, right? And so instead, what I did this time was I said, whoa, stop. There's something going on. There's actually something going on within me. I don't know what it is. I know that my kid's behavior is making me really upset. And then I started kind of going backwards and really figuring out what was the actual trigger. And when I went through this process, which I teach in the Calm Mama Blueprint, I figured out it was my husband. Like, and it wasn't his fault, but it was the thing that we really hadn't resolved the tiff. We had done, had this moment in passing and we never got to come back and resolve things. And so I felt unsettled. I had a need, which again is another thing I teach in the Calm Mama Blueprint. We have these feelings and these needs, and when we understand those and we meet those for ourselves, and sometimes meeting those means asking somebody else, like our partner, to help meet that need. It helps us to actually feel better. I love the nonviolent communication framework of a child's behavior. I mean, I even say, and I think they do too, any human's behavior is just their best attempt to get a need met. And when we come from this lens, we have much more compassion and empathy for ourselves rather than being really frustrated and not even having any idea why and blaming our child. If you find yourself falling into blame, you probably need to do some work in this area to actually get to an understanding of what's going on inside of you. Number 3 is going to be to look at behaviors as unmet needs. I just shared about this where in nonviolent communication, they have this belief that every behavior is basically a human's best attempt to get a need met. And I think for me, what shifted drastically was that I actually have needs and I actually need them to get met. My children actually have needs and they need them to get met. I'm not a bad person. I'm unaware of these needs. And so that's what I help moms do, whether that's in coaching or in the Calm Mama Blueprint, to understand I have needs and how do I even identify what those needs are? How do I even see what they are so I can get them met? Being able to communicate that to whether it's our spouse, to a friend, maybe it's asking for help. Like there's so much more than just the basic, I'm hungry, tired, which those do weigh a lot. But there's a lot more to this idea of needs. For me, one of them was like, I needed help. I needed support. Maybe I need better communication. Maybe I'm needing understanding. Maybe I'm needing respect. Maybe I'm needing autonomy or choice. These are all needs that are universal. And when we can look at our child in this light, we actually have a lot of patience for them. A lot of toddlers are very primal, right? I say a lot. All toddlers are primal. Their reactions, their anger, their tantrums are just a very immature system that is I would say primally expressing itself to anger. And we see that as bad. Now, while, okay, an adult throwing a tantrum is never okay, right? We do want to teach them how to actually handle big moments, big situations, disappointment, frustration, sadness, overwhelm. This is important, but I think that we, need to really say here, like, okay, when my child is throwing a tantrum, they're not doing this at me, they're not doing this to me, they're not trying to make me angry. What they're trying to do is get a need met. So I had this client of mine who constantly was on her phone, and she would say, every time I get on to do my grocery order, or I get on to text my mom back, or I get on to make a phone call to make a doctor's appointment, this kid is just screaming. But do you know what we figured out about 2 weeks after? Every single time she got on her phone and this child started screaming, he got his need met to be seen and to be heard. And she would quickly end whatever she was doing. And even though she was angry and she was frustrated and she was just there, right? It's not a good form of the need, but the need is still getting met. So this wires this child's brain that every time my mama is on her phone, if I'm feeling empty, if I'm feeling like I'm needing to be heard and seen, I can just go scream, I can throw a fit, and my mom will give me my need. That for me was life changing. It gave me so much patience for my kids, understanding that they're not doing this to me, they're not doing this to hurt me, they just have an unmet need. So I hope that this helps, but there is so much more information that I love to share on this. I've done some videos in the past about toddlers. If you have a toddler, that will probably be very helpful for you. But again, everything I share about this is in the Calm Mama Blueprint. Okay, number 4 is going to be to unlearn your limiting beliefs. I was under this belief system the two belief systems actually. The first one was that I was a victim to my life. I was a victim because my daughter had a rare congenital heart defect, and this, just took my world and it flipped it upside down. And while it did, I mean, it totally did, and I was a victim in that moment, I didn't need to keep myself there, right? And so I had to unlearn this belief that I was a victim, because what I realized going back into my childhood is I would play the victim card. I would get myself in victim situations so that I could be seen, cared for, loved, heard, maybe supported. And that was my way of getting that need met. So when my daughter came, I clung on to that. I used that to be heard and seen by the people around me. And I didn't need to do that. I could just be me. I could be the joyful, loving, empathetic version of me, the fun, silly one, and actually be seen. I didn't have to have a daughter and be a victim of her heart condition. Another one I had was this belief system that I was a martyr to motherhood, that my needs didn't matter, that my health didn't matter, that my time didn't matter. Everything needed to go to my children. And that is so wildly different now. I am such a believer that, the mother is the emotional powerhouse of the entire family. I'm talking even your spouse. It's amazing when we take accountability and say, no, this matters. No, I actually bleed into everybody else's life. I mean, that was what I believe we were created for. And when we come to this understanding and take actual control of that, it shifts and changes everything. And so realizing that it is so important to take care of ourselves, it is so important to actually put ourselves first. This is incredibly, incredibly life changing, not only for us, because it gives us more capacity, more patience, more understanding, but it gives our children this calm, safe, secure attachment that we really need. They changes their behavior, it changes how they show up, it changes the energy of the home, and it gives us that calm life that we always wanted. And yeah, it takes some work, but at least it feels like we can control it, right? Like we have control over ourselves. And I mean, at the end of the day, as a mom, that's a pretty good feeling. At least for me, I'm like, I want to control myself. I don't need to control my kids, but I can control how I show up, and knowing that how I model in any given situation what's going on, that's teaching my kids. And that is so much more than any discipline or correction could do. Okay, the last thing, and this one is probably one of the hardest things. I think for me, it was the hardest thing, the kind of the last thing to come online. I believe that in order to have more patience, we actually have to lower our expectations. I was a mom who my expectations were way up here. I mean, I was very type A. And I think a lot of those type B moms, I think they do have high expectations too for their kids. It just comes out in a different way. And for me, I was very on top of everything, sleep schedules, developmental milestones, making sure my kids were, doing all the things so they would meet those. And it got out of control, got down to the point where my toddler is 2, throwing a tantrum because they wanted ice cream. And I'm humiliated in the middle of the ice cream place because no other 2-year-old does this. So she should not be doing this. She should be better behaved than this. I'm a parent coach. My goodness, she should never be doing this. And there was this very humbling moment for me just recently where I actually apologized to my entire family when I was away over my daughter's tantrum over ice cream. And I was like, gosh, I was so embarrassed. And they were like, she's 2. Of course she's going to throw a tantrum, and it was for me a moment where I was like, yeah, she's 2. Of course she's going to throw a tantrum. That makes total sense. My expectation just needed to be, to walk her through the fact that like, if she wasn't going to sit in the chair, she couldn't have the ice cream cone. Her expression of that didn't matter, right? That wasn't a reflection of me, but I took it so personally. So a couple of questions I ask myself when I'm trying to notice an expectation. I'm seeing an expectation that's coming up and I'm going, is this appropriate? Is this normal? The first question I ask is this age appropriate? So in my case with the tantrum, yes, a tantrum at 2 is totally age appropriate. Yeah, I need to lower my expectation. Yeah, we might be up here for 45 minutes while the ice cream's melting downstairs. Maybe, hopefully somebody put it in the fridge, right? Or in the freezer, but I wasn't, I needed to lower the expectation that my daughter shouldn't have been having a tantrum, right? Now, the next question I ask is, do I have capacity? Maybe do I have capacity to even follow through? So something I share here on YouTube often is that if you do not have the capacity to be able to correct your child, to be able to hold a firm boundary with love, empathy, compassion, then there's no point in setting it. You are showing through modeling a really poor way of handling frustration, anger, disappointment. And that is not healthy. That's not good for the child. And so in some in some instances, it's really important to say, well, what is my capacity at this given time? And capacity can change from day to day, even I would say morning to evening. It's okay for you to feel like in the morning, like I have no capacity, but then you've kind of given yourself the freedom to fall into a greater capacity. And by the evening, you can hold the boundary that there's no sugar before dinner, and that's okay. It's okay to be a little bit inconsistent. I know that that's hard to hear, but it's okay. One of the most freeing things I've done is bedtime. Bedtime is a window. It's a window between 8 and 9. I don't really care when my kids go to bed. I just want them to be in bed sometime between 8 and 9. I follow their cues. It's a very, very lax time. And this is coming from somebody who was on a very strict sleep schedule with my kids, and it did not work. It did not work. I had, so many people saying, oh, you're just not being, firm enough with the kids. Or, there were so many different opinions out there, and I was doing all the things. It was so not right for my system. It was keeping me in fight and flight, which was keeping my kids in fight and flight, which we go back to the whole nervous system, right? That's what this was, me being stuck in fight and flight, and that just bleeding into my children, and then their behaviors just being a mirror of me, my inner world. So I hope that this video encouraged you. If you want to learn more about how to become that calm, regulated, patient mama, I'm going to encourage you to check out the Calm Mama Blueprint. It'll be there when you're ready for it. But this is just my journey. It was everything that I've done to actually get unstuck, to stop being that angry, frustrated, ragey, losing my cool, blaming, short, wanting to get away mom. Like, I actually enjoy motherhood. That doesn't mean, though, that I don't have moments, because I do. I share them all the time here. I'm not perfect, but I'm able to move through motherhood with so much more ease. And that was all I ever wanted. That was it. Just to be able to take the ups and downs and to be able to kind of let them just ride, and to be really grounded and rooted in who I was and how I showed up. So I want to thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, comments, make sure that you comment them below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And last thing is, if you have a mom friend who is struggling in motherhood, maybe she has been talking about how she just hates how impatient she is, would you please send her this video to encourage her? Sometimes us mamas just need that little bit of hope, that encouragement that, guess what? It doesn't have to be this way. We can be the mom that we always dreamed of, and the mom we always wanted to be. So anyway, I appreciate you guys being here, and I will see you in the next video.